Today we're going to talk about an issue I found to be more and more common as the years go by, and that is the overuse of technology by young children. Now I'm only 17 years old and I can already tell a big difference from the amount of technology that children use now versus the amount that I used only a few years ago. Now this is an issue I have a lot of opinions on, but I did some research and I'm going to share all that with hopes that parents will limit the amount of time that their children get with technology. Now technology has advanced very quickly, and it is more and more common to see young children entertaining themselves with some sort of device. Now this may seem fun for the child and beneficial to the parent, but technology has many negative impacts on young children and their development. Some issues I found with technology are the negative impacts it has on a children psychologically, on things such as developing social skills or overall mental health. Technology also implements problems on a child's physical health, on things such as their eyesight, and just overall it limits their amount of physical activity. Now there are some things that parents have done to prevent these issues, and I'm going to share those with you as well. So first, let's talk about how can technology have a negative impact on a child psychologically. Well, I was doing some research on this and found that well4kids.org had a whole publish on it. They talked about how children who spend a lot of time on technology lack the development of social skills. Well, this would make sense. When a child is on a device all the time, they're not out interacting with others and learning and building those social skills. Now, some parents may argue that their children are able to make friends easier on things such as social media or online gaming or whatever it may be, but it is more important for those children to be able to develop social skills, interacting with others in person, because that is what they're going to have to do for the rest of their lives. So they also said that these children often are uncomfortable in social situations, which would make sense. If they're not comfortable interacting with others, then they're not going to be comfortable in those social situations. Well4kids.org also said that technology can have a negative impact on a child's overall mental health. They said that children who spend a lot of time on technology often suffer from low self-esteem and loneliness. Well, I think this goes back to those underdeveloped social skills. If they're not out making friends, interacting with others, then they're going to have that low self-esteem and just overall be lonely. Now let's talk about some negative impacts that technology can have on children physically. When I was doing my research on this, I found that Children's Hospital of Philadelphia made a whole publish on this issue. They talked about how technology can have negative impacts on children's eyes. They say that children that spend a lot of time focusing on screens often blink less, which can cause irritated eyes and dry eyes. They also said that this can lead to headaches. Another problem that they found was children spending their time looking at screens is that they're more likely to develop nearsightedness, and this is because they're always focused on a screen that's right in front of them, which limits the amount of time that they're outside looking far away, which allows their eyes to develop to see farther distances. Now, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia also talked about how technology can limit the amount of physical activity that children get. And this is because if they're always inside, they're not outside running around playing, getting involved in that physical activity. And this is a big deal because physical activity is very important for young children, for it allows them to build their lungs, strengthen their bones and muscles, build their immune system. There's all kinds of positive effects from physical activity, which this technology is limiting. Now that we've talked about some issues, both psychologically and physically, let's talk about some ways that parents are trying to prevent these issues. One way that I found are parents using parental controls. Now, these can be found on settings on both devices or sometimes particular apps that your children may be on. Now, these are important because they allow you to monitor and limit the amount of screen time that your children are getting. And this is a big deal because if you're limiting the amount of screen time that they're getting, then you're also limiting those issues we just talked about. Another cool thing that I found that parents are doing are implementing some ground rules. One cool rule I saw was parents are setting an age at which their child is allowed to be or to have technology. And this is cool because if your children aren't allowed to have technology until a certain age, then you're not going to have to worry about them spending too much time and looking at that screen for too long because they don't have it to begin with. Another cool rule I found is parents requiring their children to be involved in some sort of activity. I think this is a great rule because there's an activity out there that every child would enjoy, and it forces a child to be out interacting with others, developing those social skills like we talked about earlier, and just overall getting away from technology. And both of these are some really good rules that I encourage all parents to do. So now that we've talked about some issues that technology puts on children, both psychologically and physically, and some ways that parents have tried to prevent it, I want to leave you with this. Technology has many negative impacts on a child's health. We talked about how it negatively impacts them psychologically, where they're lacking those social skills, which can lead to low self-esteem and loneliness. We also talked about how technology can negatively impact a child's physical health for their eyesight, their eyes, and if they're just limiting the amount of physical activity they get, this all has negative impacts. Now we talked about how parents can use parental controls, set some ground rules, and just overall limits the amount of time that their kids get with technology. I encourage all parents to take part in those. For if we limit the amount of time that our children are getting with technology, then we're limiting those issues that we've talked about. Now, overall, just please understand that your children are not going to enjoy limited screen time, but it is the best thing for them. They'll benefit from it later on, and it's the right thing to do. Thank you.